Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Extra Hours, part of the officehours.global network. If you want to find out more, officehours.global/join is how you can get connected. This is a Monday night thing in the US. Clearly, I don't sound like I'm from the US, and I'm not. I'm in Adelaide, South Australia, and it's good to be back. I've had a few weeks off. I travelled around. The thought did cross my mind, should I join from the road? And I thought, well, maybe I'll give my family some quality time, and so we did that for a bit. And then I've also had a couple of flights for work as well, and so that's meant that I haven't been available, but Guy Cochran kept the chair very warm. Thank you, Guy. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It was one of those things where I had to dive in and was able to pull it off. It's a lot of work, though, doing what you do. Those are big shoes to fill.
There were some great discussions that we have, and you made me think it was funny how when pulling in some special guests and doing a special episode, particularly for people in the Southern Hemisphere, like pulling in guests from the Southern Hemisphere makes a lot of sense on these evening shows. So it's got me thinking about who else we might be able to do and to bring in. So we'll think about that. Speaking of the Southern Hemisphere, just down the road from me, actually, is Carl Asmussen. Hello, Carl.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's a grey day here today, but the weather's quite nice.
Little weather report from
winter.
Carl.
Just let our North American friends know that it is winter here.
It's cold. That's why you've got the little jacket on, little extra vest there. Yes. Do you know, Carl on this show particularly acts almost like an AI bot, so you sort of can just say, tell me something about this topic, and you can get sort of 6 or 8 paragraphs about that information.
Like our version of Watson.
That's right. So we're going to test that theory tonight. We'll see what questions we have. And to complete our small but quality panel tonight, we have Jason Baish. Hello, Jason.
Hello. Yes. What would a quality panel be without the fall guy? And here I am. Hello.
Very good. So, first up, I want to say to all those people watching live 2 very important things. One is please ask some questions in Makana, jump in Makana and put some questions in and vote up the questions that you find most interesting. But also, in After Hours, there is the full 3 displays of Vector, which is running this show. So the 3 outputs and the control, the interface, and the sort of output screens that you can see all of that in a breakout room in After Hours. So if you join, you'll see After Hours links and things in the emails that you get. You join After Hours. If you hear me saying After Hours and you have no idea what that is, it's a Zoom meeting that we run 24/7 for people just to sort of hang out and ask questions in the moment. Sometimes you're messing around with something, and it would be great to throw some questions at people and workshop something. And so there's not always people, there's always people in there, at least it looks like it, and some of them will be listening. Not everyone's listening at the time, but jump in there and say, hello, anyone listening? And you see if anyone listens and responds, and if they do, then you get the discussion going, and you might just jag the right people. Occasionally also we push out posts in the Discord to say, hey, someone's asking about vMix, or someone wants to play around with this PTZ camera, or whatever it might be that you're playing with. We've seen people doing 3D, like CAD work and things in there as well, and so lots of that. Anyway, the point is, when you go in there, go to the breakout rooms button, and then you'll see
and
video
how much does that cost, Brian?
And now how much would you pay?
It's free. It's free. It's 100% free to watch.
It is free.
People cut in a $1,200 a month program. It's free.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can see exactly how it works. It costs Zoom quite a bit because we have all that bandwidth flying around for 24/7, but I'm sure they can manage it. All right. So, jump in there and have a look and have some questions. And there's also the chat that we'll keep an eye on as well in Makana. I think that's everything. We can jump to our first question, Guy.
Yeah, first one's in from Zach Jeffers in the Great Pacific Northwest. That's where I am. So actually, I'm going to give you a look out the window real quick, just because we didn't do the weather thing to kick things off. So as you guys were talking about it cold, this is, you know, the so summer good. Here. It's just beautiful outside. All right, so Zach Jeffers is down the road from me, and he asks, thought question, is specializing in a niche low-quantity market where dollars are hard-fought sustainable? With media expertise growing in the general tech community, it seems that one should be widespread or all in on a more lucrative vertical.
Good question. Jason?
So by low quantity, I'm assuming high value. And I think 090 Media is doing okay. So, like, you know, at the end of the day, if you are the best at what you do, I think that, yes, this is sustainable, but it's not one of these things where you can just assume that you're going to be straight to the top. And to that end, you know, there's always a due to pay, or 10 or 12 or 100. And that's, you know, it is the almighty depends. It's kind of like you shouldn't be playing a guitar in hopes that you will be a rock star. You should be playing a guitar because you love it.
Nice. Carl?
Yeah, so this is a bit of a catch-22, because if you focus on one thing, you become what's called a subject matter expert in that thing, and therefore you bring a lot of value to the job if someone hires you. But the issue is you can be typecast in that. So if you do offer other services, people in the industry who have the money to pay you just don't think of you for that, because they just see you as one thing. And it's kind of like people looking at certain tools, you know, like in a hardware store, they just look at tools and they think this tool is just used for one type of thing. And it's unfortunate how you can get typecast in that. And we've had other members on Office Hours talk about this, where they got typecast and they had to kind of like pivot hard on their career because they just weren't getting the type of work they wanted, or they just wanted to get out of the thing they were doing. The other thing you could say, you can go all in on a more wider, more lucrative. You can do that, but then you are now competing with the problem of people not knowing what exactly you do, because if you're a master of everything, and it's a bit hard for. So what it comes down to is you're going to have producers who have the money to pay you. That's kind of that's who you're selling to. You're not selling to the director. You're not selling to the creatives. You're selling to the suits. Creatives can suggest you to the suits, but really it's the suits who have to make the decision on you. So you need to market yourself to the suits and not to the creatives. And by doing, if you become a subject matter expert and you become quite well known and doing your own passion projects. So passion projects are really important to, one, hone your craft, become even more of a subject matter expert, and have an ability to show the suits what it is you do. The creatives understand what you do, but the suits may not, and they may not understand what's entailed in what you do. So it's always good to show like behind the scenes. There are some professional cinematographers who have YouTube channels because they do want to show every once in a while what it takes to do their job. So you can think like that kind of thing, where kind of a small like 5-10 minute workshop you could shoot on video showing other people how to do your job, students, whoever. That would also tell the suits, you know enough about your job to teach other people. And suits respond to that pretty quickly. So there are certain ways to market to people who have the money to pay you. And there's also networking with the creatives, so the creatives put your name in the hat. They're the kind of the two things I'd suggest, regardless of what type of industry you're in.
Guy?
Yeah, it's interesting in this area where I am. There's some of the bigger tech companies in the world. We have the Microsofts and the Amazons, and so locally we get a lot of that corporate work. But also I'm seeing what the dollars are is a lot of medical stuff, and I think Raj, you do a couple medical events as well. And to me, it's kind of like it's not soul crushing work. It's just kind of blah, you know, they're using jargon that I don't understand, but I'm just there to make them look good on camera and flip to their PowerPoint when they call it, you know. And so it just depends on what skills that you have. That they don't do enough of these type of presentations per year to justify having on-call staff internally, or some of them do and they wind up regretting it, because I can't count how many locally we have of TriCasters and Blackmagic 4Ks that are just sitting in a back closet because they thought they could take it internal, and that you need the killer staff that does this all the time to make a show really flow. So to me, it's kind of like you want to have your things that bring you joy. And to me, office hours is one of those things that brings me joy. I enjoy helping people and, being part of the community. And I know that I could probably go to Australia and go crash on somebody's couch if I wanted to go, on vacation. So that's one of the joys of this community is that, hey, you're meeting
100%.
people, you're helping people. And I know if I need some audio help, I could, lean on Mickey. He's here in the chat right now. So there's side benefits that, what if the dollar, with all this Bitcoin and AI, and what if that all went away and all we had was each other? Like to me, there's value in relationships and talent. So getting skills, Carl's great at photography. I'd love to get more into photography. So sometimes you do want to get, a little wider in certain areas, like networking is another one where I want to get deeper into it because the whole NDI certification. And there's like guys that know Cisco, like JJ, and some of these guys are just, their brain is on a whole nother level. They love 3D, or they love, so everybody has a different skill set. So it's just a matter of finding where you fit in that. There's a book called Ikigai. It's a Japanese term. Look it up. I don't have the whole quadrant in front of me, but there's like doing what you love and doing what you can make money at, and there's a little fit in there in the center, and you try to find that. But yeah, you'll burn yourself out if you just try to do stuff that you don't like, or if you're chasing the wrong venture. Time will tell, but you're fueled not just by dollars, you're fueled by your joy, your spirit. So something to think about.
Yeah, it's exactly what Mickey said in the chat. There are productions that pay the bills, and there's productions that feed the soul. Rarely both. Rarely both, but it's possible. I think Guy, you talk about medical events. It seems like there's certain events that education, particularly about professional development, continuing education, that are really good. They're good bread and butter clients to have, meaning that it's constant, because it's one of the things that kind of helped us, even through COVID, as lots of events were just cancelling. You had doctors that are like, we've got to keep up our professional development. Whatever it is, we've got to keep doing it. And so, there's lots of times that I'm involved in an event like that I don't understand 3/4 of the words they're saying, but there is something about being part of the education process that literally could save lives. There's something about that is something that I reflect on, because the alternative sometimes is other events that happen quite a bit. It's sometimes in that coaching, in enrollment-based events, coaching, personal development, that sort of stuff. There's that, and then I'd probably have another category, which is MLM, multi-level marketing, which I tend to avoid like the plague, because if there's an event, if there's certain events that you work on that are kind of neutral, where it's like, okay, like I've done some investing, like stock market things or something like that, kind of goes over my head. I'm like, I'm okay. It's not big for me. It's not, not super interesting for me. But I don't feel like it's doing damage. Whereas sometimes, and I've seen it in multi-level marketing, that there's lots of people that can be being taken advantage of. They end up filling their garages full of their products and never sell them. It's like the company's done well because they've sold all these products to fill garages. all that, yeah. And so there's sometimes there are there's events that eat at the soul, or and so. But
it is interesting to see how, like Zoom, we were talking before the show that they have now, what was it, a $5,000 or 5,000 seat license? So now we've got these.
Somebody's asking for it, or they wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, exactly. So we're taking technology that used to be a hotel in the desert, a convention center where everybody would fly in, and now everybody's used to doing this, and it's no problem. So there's different ways of spinning those old, 1970s audio cassettes that used to be pitched at the back of the room. What's the modern day version of that?
100%. Well, and we've talked about this a lot, and particularly we can get Alex wound up on this pretty quickly, but the idea
Worked
about,
into a lather, perhaps.
yeah, that's right, about events in general and bringing people together and the idea of online events. For me, I'm still developing my language around this. As I speak to people that just haven't got any reference for where we are in events. I feel like online is inclusive, right? By its nature, it's very low cost of entry to get people to an online event, which I think you do, and you do large scale online events, and then we make the in-person events exclusive, very, very targeted, focused on a certain number of people. And the reason I say this is because people say, why do we need to do in-person events? You ask people, why do you want to get together? We want to get together because we want to network, we want to build relationships, we want to hang out with people, we want to like really spend time going over the common interest that we have, whatever that is, or common need or whatever. And so then you say, okay, so how do you structure your event to maximize what you want to do in an in-person event? Well, we put them in a room where they look at a big screen, they listen to someone talk for 40 minutes. We give them 3 minutes to ask a couple of questions because we ran out of time because the speaker went too long. And then we jam them off into an expo booth where they line up for coffee for 20 minutes, and then they got to rush back to sessions. And so the way that we're structuring those in-person events doesn't lead to the values or the reason for coming together. And so most people are sitting in those boring death by PowerPoint events, and they're just hanging out to go to the bar or to the golf course, the next day or whatever it is, where they do actually get to hang out with people. And so I like the idea that we don't fragment our events by having all these concurrent sessions and people all going all over the place, but you have a common experience for everyone. And it's kind of like that, the way that the TED conferences work, where it's, a few talks and then 2 hours of networking, and then a few talks and 2 hours of networking, that type of idea. And they're all seeing the same talks. They're not going off into separate streams. They're all seeing the same thing. And it's an event that's it's designed around the maximum number, rather than often we're just like planning for as many people that will come, as many people that want to pay is what we'll do. So anyway, I've gotten off topic, sorry, but it's something that I think plays into what we're kind of talking about as far as the opportunities that exist for us to do different sorts of work that might be online or some in person. The thing that I think about with focusing in or specializing is still maintaining the general ability to be able to do a lot of things, because ultimately it's about relationships that you have with your clients and building trust. And so what happens, and we've heard Alex talk about this, the trust was built over the years of doing seemingly basic events or projects, and then building on that, because you've built the trust of the client, and the client starts saying, oh, actually, we're thinking about doing this. Do you think you could do it? Absolutely. We're on it. But I am interested, before we move on, Guy, I'm interested kind of in retail. Do you think that there is is there a parallel in that?
Well,
you could have
happened
stopped
20 years ago. Yeah, I mean, the whole e-commerce shift, I mean, Amazon's just dominating. Right. But go ahead and finish it off. Maybe I'm missing something there, but...
No, all I was going to say is that you could have focused on high ticket items and filled a store with high ticket items, or you have lots of the cheaper items and you sell more of those, like a volume
what
based
happened,
or
yeah, it was nice to sell the smaller items to lead people in, and then they would get on our mailing list, and then we could do videos and we could train them, and we would be like, hey, there's this new thing that's coming out, and the videos would be what would lead people around. And so that it was like a big circle, but it was always a lot of like little cables, little $100 our average ticket item was like our average ticket was $120 something regularly. Like it just stuck for years like that, even though sometimes we'd sell a big camera, sometimes we'd sell a $20 cable. It's just an average. And we sold a ton of ring lights, which kind of made it stick to that $100 to $200 level. But yeah, it's different to think about events and where we've been bringing in people remotely, like the gig that I worked on with you, Grant, where it's like, where can you tell the client, hey, look what these other guys are doing, where you could amplify your reach or get better quality or get remote people to come and work. So to answer Zach's question, it's kind of like, what value can you add to amplify their business? And I just think we're in this really golden age right now of potential reach. It's like we're just figuring it out. Like Zoom's really taken the
and
ball.
Alex's idea of the 5 nines, right? I found that my own version of that is actually really, really effective, because it's a truism, but it's one that when you kind of shift it to the side, and it forces people to recognize just how much money they're spending for just this thing. And why have we always done it? Well, because we've always done it. And we're going to keep doing it because it's what we did last year and the year before. And the 5 nines, for those who don't know, is that 99.999% of people at any trade show or any event in the world potentially could be benefiting from what you're doing, and they're not there, so they'll never see it. Hence the idea of a virtual first event.
Yeah, it's I think even in what you're talking about, Guy, is the relationship building, right? Someone comes in, they buy a $20 cable. You've got them on the mailing list. You're now building relationship and building the trust. And so now when it's like, oh, actually, I do need to spend $1,000 on something, it's like, what do I do? And I trust these guys, and they're going to work it out.
Yeah, it's an earned relationship where it starts small, but over time you're just doing. Usually it takes 7. They say 7 times of there's a reason why Coca-Cola has a part on their balance sheet that's for goodwill. It's like they do all these things, all these ads and everything like that. It's an intangible that you can't really calculate. But by giving, and getting your eyes out, your brand or your personality or whatever it is out there, now all of a sudden when you do have something to pitch, and a lot of these guys, they call them JV partners or whatever, they'll help bring their audience to somebody else who has some kind of new offering. And so you're earning your winnings for the year. Maybe like I know one guy here locally, Sean Cannell, he was telling me that in one day he made $60,000 off of a joint venture just by mailing to his list somebody who had a new course. And I was like, wow, that's impressive. But he's like, but we give and we give and we give and we give and we give all this free stuff. Because I was wondering, how do you do that? And he's like, well, it's just for that one time a year where that joint venture partner walks in, and we were able to put their plate offering in front of our audience, and they're receptive because we gave away so much good content.
I agree, though. Like, that is the antithetical part. Like, you will never get to that rarefied air without continuously just churning over and over again. So it's like, that's like somebody saying, you know what, I'd just like to be the best. Like, I'd like to just skip all the steps and be the best. The niche, low quantity market, which I said high value. But, it's a progression straight away.
Yeah, I do think about the sharing of knowledge. It's something that we've done here, that we're freely sharing knowledge and how to do this and these little tricks here, and then you do this and that. It seems like we're giving away our IP, but actually it's all about you're selling the personalization of that knowledge. And so it shows that we have knowledge in the area, and actually it's also this community base of, rising tide floats all boats, and we've kind of got that. There's enough work for everyone.
Well,
So
as a consultant, I've
let's
never
all be a
charged
bit
for
better.
phone time. And like, people thought I was nuts when I wrote that into the business plan. But like straight away, if I can be answering your questions while driving down the street, it is bad business not to.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good one. We've got a couple about workforce. What's the next one there, Guy?
Next one's in from Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana, and he says, sadly, there are many negative predictions about future careers and economic stability in everything from basic office work to advanced media production. What can we say to our youth today to encourage them and give them hope as they look for work?
Carl?
So work is kind of an interesting thing over the last, let's say, 200 years, industrial, Karl Marx talked about it in Das Kapital. So there's kind of two ways to look at it. So I can go back to Karl Marx. So he talks about you have money and you want to make more money. So if you have capital, you take that capital, you buy something that is a commodity, and then you sell that commodity, or you adapt that commodity and make profit, make more money. The other way around is what we call primary producers, so farmers. Farmers don't have money, farmers have a commodity. So they have carrots. And so they sell those carrots because they want to buy eggs. So, and that is commodity to money back to commodity, which is eggs. So the farmer wants eggs, he's got carrots, and it's not a barter system, it is a monetary system. So if you're going to teach young people, what it is they need to produce a commodity. So this is what's called creative energy. Norman Foster, the architect who made Apple Park, he talks about this. He divides up his kind of life his work life into three. So, which is resources, which is money essentially. But resources can also be materials for doing his job, being an architect and building the things he wants to do. There's time. So time is another factor as well. There's only so much time in a day. So, and the other one is creative energy. And creative energy, as an architect, you can imagine that's where he probably spends most of his time, and that's true, it is. But he does also have to think about the time it's going to take to build. And that also has a cost to it, because the longer time takes to build something, it's going to cost more. And the resources. So the resources can also be the materials, the cash that's required to pay for certain permits. So there's a lot of things, but he says creative energy. And he tells people who are architectural students, so students, what to focus on. He says, focus on creative energy. Because there are a lot of people out there who do not have the creative energy bent, but they're good at dealing with time management and raising funds, raising resources. And so this is kind of, we go back to venture capitalists. Venture capitalists are sometimes people who have a lot of money, but not many ideas. So they're looking for good ideas to make more money. And so if you are the ideas person, that's where you will always win, regardless of where AI goes. So AI can take care of time management. AI can also take care of resource management, and that could be dividing up workforce, to make it more economical. So AI is going to take that job. So human resources are going to be, their jobs are going to be thinned out, but creative energy, the ideas person in the team, their job won't be overtaken, and the ideas person can actually use AI as a tool to create even better ideas. So that's kind of the way it is. So the ideas person is not the person who's going to compete with AI. The other person is going to use AI to create the best ideas that'll give you the best bang for the buck, or solve problems. Because another thing that creative energy does is solve problems. So Norman Foster talks about this, solving problems in architecture is a big thing where the client wants this to happen. Like, Apple wanted a building with no walls. They wanted glass to hold up the roofs. Norman Foster had to figure out how to do that. And he did. So that's kind of what you need to look at. You need to look at, if you're going to teach it the next generation, say how you creatively solve problems and how you creatively generate new ideas. That's your job. You can use AI, you can use technology to help you do that, but you've got to be the kernel that puts that into AI and get something out of it, because AI is just a tool, of course. Now, if you want to go into something like time management, if you want to go into become an accountant, those days are going to soon be numbered. Now, it doesn't mean there's no creative energy in accountancy, because there always is, because there are tax laws and there are ways to push right up against those tax laws to maximize your profits. That's a capitalist system. So accountants do need to do it, but they need to work in a creative energy space. So that's what you pretty much want to tell students who are coming up, is think creatively on how to solve problems, and use the tools available to you, be it AI or whatever, to make your creative energy go further or happen faster. So that solves the time problem, because you want to. I can sit down and I could probably write a screenplay for a movie, but it'd probably take me 2 years to make a decent one. But if I lent on AI, I could make a really terrible movie in probably 2 days rather than 2 years. So you can do that.
Jason?
You ever noticed that the generations that came before you are way too uptight, and the generations after you take nothing at all seriously? All right, I'll try this again. Have you ever noticed that the people that are driving faster than you are out of their minds, and the people that are driving slower than you really just don't deserve to be on the road? This is as old as time. Okay, this happens all the time. And like, I'm sorry, but everybody ends up with their own version of the zeitgeist. Everybody's challenges are different, but the reason there are negative predictions is because nobody pays attention to everything's great straight away. Like, if it bleeds, it leads. And at the end of the day, the less time you spend listening to other people's mind vomit about what the future is, the more time you will have to create your own.
Fair enough. Guy?
Yeah, I do wonder what Alex would say if he was here. I know that one thing he would say is he would talk about how all this memorization stuff that kids are learning in school is just out the window because ChatGPT and all these AI things could do that, and you have a device in your pocket. So the kids that are learning how to be creative, there are different schools out there that let kids go play out in the fields all day, and there's very little of the actual kind of training that you would get in a typical classroom. The Stein something method, I don't remember the exact name of it, but one of the things that's interesting in this Empire of AI book that I recommended last week is when Sam Altman started doing more and more work with OpenAI, he started to realize that there's going to be this need for universal basic income. So where's the world going? What's going to happen? Where are we going to be if AI really does take over the jobs that were more office style work, where traditionally we had a secretary, we had somebody that could do copies? Like, where are all those jobs going? The plumbers and the hands-on tech kind of work are still going to be there, but I have a 21-year-old and I'm trying to keep him going in college, and so this advice right now is very prudent to me, because I'm like right there living it, going, what would I tell him, because he wants to do his own thing, and I don't want to ram anything down his throat, but it's hard to give him hope when I'm reading these books and going, man, if the guy who's got the keys to the kingdom right now, because really AI is going to play such a huge role, and whoever has that top position can dictate quite a bit. They can really transform the future of humanity. I mean, as shocking as that sounds, I mean, the ball really is in Sam Altman's court right now. There's a grave danger to these guys pulling the strings. We got to watch out who we let up there, and that's why Elon tried to, he tried to make this a nonprofit and tried to make it so that there was these constraints, and all these organizations came in trying to lock it all down, because it's going to force people out of work and into more being in their own little bubble. I mean, it's like these movies that we've seen where they're just wearing goggles and what was that movie?
Yeah.
Not Wall-E. What was the other one where they just have on the goggles and
they're on a spaceship.
Ready Player One.
Ready Player One. Yeah, I mean, it's scary. So I don't know what to say, Roscoe. I'm probably not the right guy to ask right now.
we went to Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh there with Guy. He just had the
not that it matters.
I'm not gonna. Don't worry. I think similarly for me, Guy. I've got my ninth grader son. Just last night we were going to the school and walking through and talking to all the different teachers about his course selection for 10th grade, but of course it's not just 10th grade, it's 11th and 12th. He's sort of working out the next 3 years, and here he is, a 14-year-old trying to plan out the rest of his life, and the best kind of advice that we can give him at the moment is to just follow your bliss, right? Like follow your interests, and really, I heard actually quite a good comment from Zuckerberg on Rogan one time, and he was just talking about like meaning of life, and it was like, you know, to build relationships and to create. And I think that somewhere along the line there, it's just what, Kyle, you were talking about a bit as well. It's just like, I think that we're having more opportunity to create than ever, and that there was an expectation, it was just understood in the past that you worked to live, and then once you were finished work, then you could do the create and recreate and, you know, whatever that looked like. I think the opportunities are now that, as part of potentially some sort of income or work, is that it is a creative process. There's more of those roles. Even when you're talking about trades, Guy, like plumbers, electricians, whatever, I don't think it's that much of a stretch to think about like the Tesla robots or whatever doing that work too.
Yeah, yep. Optimus
Right?
will take over. Yep.
Totally can, yeah.
Well, this whole industrial
now, that's gonna
revolution,
take-
I mean,
that's gonna take
this
some
9
time.
to 5,
Yeah.
this is a thing of just this last 100 years. You know, we lived in villages before where everybody worked together and certain people, hunter-gatherers, all that. This whole, we live in an apartment by ourselves or, you know, with a small amount of people is new. So I don't know where we're going with it, but it's interesting to think that this is all stuff that we made up. Money's made up. You know, it's just like all this stuff that we're chasing after it for what? Because if there's universal basic income, what's this world going to look like if our kids?
And that's why I mentioned what Karl Marx wrote in Das Kapital. There's commodity and money, and there's two. As I said, there's two systems. There's money to money, which is essentially people making profit from goods, and then there's commodity to money to commodity, which is a farmer. A farmer's a good example of this, or a plumber. So a plumber has a commodity, which is I can fix your plumbing. You give me money, I use that money to go buy McDonald's. So that's kind of exactly that thing. And both those systems will still work. But I think the one that's kind of hurt the most is the money to commodity to money. So the reselling of goods. Because as we mentioned, Tesla now sells direct to customers, and we're finding a lot of other businesses that are also selling direct to customers. And Jeff Bezos tapped in on that because that's exactly what Amazon is just a bent pipe of distributors being able to sell directly to customers via a service, and Amazon's that service. So I think you're right that there is going to be certain whole job categories that are going to be managers only required. So workaday people are not required because they'll be taken over by AI or by Tesla bots, by Optimus. And then but I think the creative ones, and we could call them another word, it's problem solvers. Every industry has problem solvers. Engineers solve problems. And so scientists solve problems. They ask themselves questions and figure out how to solve that problem. And teachers solve problems. Teachers want to take someone who's in the first grade and over the space of 12 months, get them into the third grade. So that's the problem of the teacher, is going, I've got to get them from first grade to third grade. It's my job. They don't think about, I need to teach them second grade. That teacher really has to go, I got you when you were in first grade, at the end of first grade. Now I've got to deliver you to third grade, and I've got to do a good job of that. So teachers also have to have creative problem solving because they may have 30 students who all learn differently. So they've got to solve problems of how to teach a syllabus, which they don't really get to have much input on a lot of the time. But they've got to teach that syllabus to 30 unique individuals. Keep the interest. These kids can't go off and get a job. So those early years are really important for children development. So I think teachers is going to be one thing. A lot of people say, oh, we'll have Optimus in the classroom. No, I think there'll always be teachers because there's different learning styles. And I think only a human can really figure out from a 7-year-old what their learning style is, which a machine will have trouble with. Adults are a little bit different because you can take questionnaire online and they can figure out which is the best way to deliver the package to you. 7-year-olds a little bit tricky because 7-year-olds will lose attention to any test they're given and they won't understand why they're taking the test. So I think teachers are still going to be quite valuable, especially up to, maybe high school age.
Yeah, until until we have that, a matrix thing where you can just shove that thing right into your brainstem and whoa, I know kung fu. Teaching and that really is an enduring skill. But at the end of the day, I guess I get my encouragement from the recognition that just about everyone I've ever met has one thing, one topic, one subject, one arena, whether it be physical or abstract, where they get in this gear and they can go forever. So my advice is find that for yourself. Figure out what it is. Ask the people around you, what is the thing that the minute you start me on, I'm a perpetual motion machine. There. Like that's really what you need to be seeking out.
Yeah, I was just thinking we're talking about the future, and this is the Tesla diner, and it always just fascinates me because it's like this is a look in, pulling from the past and kind of going into the future, right? So it kind of has this. That's what people have said. It's like the Flintstones.
I was about to say the Jetsons and the Flintstones
meets
together.
The Jetsons. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's some of that. But you'll see the Optimus serving popcorn, which is kind of hilarious because you could probably just get your own popcorn.
I was about to say, how much popcorn will it take to eclipse the cost of all those servos and the programming?
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot that could do. But what is interesting is what you're referencing as well is the community and the human interaction. And I find that really interesting here is that there's a lot of that, particularly for Tesla owners. They've already got a common interest, and now you've got people sitting around a table and chatting about that. It's bringing people together. And so it's interesting to me that we... I saw an old TED talk actually that was just about longevity, and it was talking about the groups of or the places where they have the longest lives, people that live the longest, and they talked about different foods and things like that, but really that doesn't shift it that much. The key thing they were talking about was actually how the elderly are incorporated into family, that they're still in family. So they're not pushed off into retirement homes or nursing homes, as we call them, and things like that. They're actually still actively involved in the family life. They live in the family. They live around, and it's very challenging to me to think about that. With sort of four parents on both sides of my family that are still alive, that I'm grateful for. But what does that mean for them over the next 10, 20 years maybe? That if the responsibility I see is that their longevity could be closely linked to my involvement or their involvement in my life or my kids' lives, and that this is the thing is that I think it seems like every city you go to is expanding. It's like it just keeps more and more farmland turning into homesteads and building. You're like, where are all the people coming from? It's like, well, they're probably not actually coming from anywhere. They're just moving out of, there's less people per house. It's kind of what's happening now, and I think we're losing something in that process. So once again, gone on another tangent, but it's something to think about, because I think the more AI that comes in, or the more non-human activity that happens, I think we have to increase our human activity and interactivity, which is what we're getting to with events and things as well, right? It's actually bringing people together, spending more time together. That village concept.
Well, it's crazy that somebody like Courtney jumps on the panel almost every day, and he is sharp as a tack. And even our president, here in the U.S., the U.S. president, 79 years old, I believe, he's purposeful. So that's the thing is, can you align your life to where you have purpose? And for some people in the villages in the olden days, it was, they would still have a task to go do. And that kept them sharp and physically moving. I think in those blue zones, a lot of the times it's not just the diet, it's the fact that they are involved and they're moving and they feel like they're a part of something. Here locally, it's sad to see these people that work their whole lives at this little plane company here called Boeing. And I can't count how many people I've heard of that work these long hours their entire career. And then 2 weeks later after they retire, they just...
Right.
And
well, that's no accident.
Like
when you conflate identity with, you know, if you conflate your job with your identity, then you know it's no accident that people retire and then they just immediately die.
Well, on that note,
I'm an optimist, by the
way. Yeah, as part of the family road trip, we went back to my hometown, which is in Mount Gambier. It's at the bottom of South Australia, and one of our good close family friends, she's 90. She just turned 90, and I said, "Oh, can we come around and see you?" She said, "Yeah, I've just got back from the gym." And so you know, I need to take a shower, but then I'll be good. And I saw her, and she was amazing, you know, like, and I saw her in her house, in the garage, got the car. I was like, "So you're still driving?" And she said, "Oh, only like 2-hour trips, like, you know, not like 5-hour trips." I was like, I'm expecting her to say only like, you know, down into the grocery store or whatever, like 5 minutes away. That's what I expected her to say. Not, "Oh no, I'm going 65 miles an hour."
Not driving to Sydney, just to Melbourne.
My great aunt was very happy when she figured out that the Santa Fe ski basin stops actually charging you for lift tickets after the age of 85. Which is crazy, but again, like, you know, she skied to school. She grew up in Switzerland, and like, incredible skier.
That's so funny. So we actually have a few more questions, but I take a little bit of liberty on this show, and let the questions go out a little bit. So we'll push a couple back, but because I think we've landed on a bit of a topic here, and I just wanted to see if we had other ones that were along that line, because just checking through. Okay, there's a couple that are more that'll be well suited to the Daily Show, and I encourage you to push those through tomorrow. There's no easy way because it's two separate events in Meccano. You just copy and paste it and put it into office hours. And oh, Vienna, how cool. So let me just see, what's our next one there?
Next one, I think it's a good one. Let's pop it in. Kyle Hammond in Chicago asked, "Do you have a moment that you can share, good or bad, that solidified your life's trajectory to your current status?"
Good one. Carl.
So for me, probably happened in high school, actually. So in high school, I was in a band, but I was also the guy in the band who knew how to work with the equipment, so recording equipment, stuff like that. So that fell on my shoulders. So I would have been like 13, 14 years old, so we could record the band and listen back. And then I did photography as a class. So one of the classes we had was I did photography. I would have been 14, 15. And I thought photography was fun and stuff. But it wasn't until I was a senior. I would have been about 17 in high school, just about to finish high school. And we were cleaning out. So the seniors came in for, it was a development, essentially like a development day for us, where only the seniors came into the school for that day. And one of the jobs we did was occupation health and safety, so we had to understand that. And so we were cleaning out spaces that needed cleaning out. I was cleaning out the space, and I came across Super 8mm films from the 1970s that students had made of animation, pretty much an art project. And I found the Moviola. So this is a hand-cranked Moviola, so you can watch the Super 8 films. It simply just shows up a little screen. And I went, "Oh, this is interesting." And I thought, do we still have the cameras here at the school? And it's like, no. And I was like, all right. And so I went on to look around and see if I could find one. A friend of mine who worked in a camera shop sold me his for $15. It's a Super 8 Canon camera from the 1970s. And then by chance, I was in a second-hand shop, and I came across pretty much the Rolls Royce of Super 8 cameras. And they'll sell it for $140, and now they sell for $1,000 still on eBay. I went, yep. So I snapped that up, and I still have it. And so I went into at my last year of high school, I went into making Super 8 films. So shooting on film, shooting on Kodak film, and getting it developed in Switzerland, because at the time that was the only place that developed this particular type of film was in Switzerland. And then it moved to Brazil later on, and then they shut it down completely. So pretty much that was kind of where I got into like AV production, as going, I could do this for a living. And then I thought it's pretty expensive to move up to 16 and 35 millimeter from 8 millimeter. So I thought I better teach myself photography first, so I'm not wasting film. So if I can shoot 1 frame at a time and make it look good, and then I can shoot 24 frames a second and make it look good. So I learned cinematography the old school way of learning photography first. And then, yeah, so pretty much through my late teens and early 20s, I shot an awful amount of film. Did a lot of good photography, a lot of terrible photography. You don't know, of course, until you get the film back. But I also slowed down a lot. So I slowed down doing my photography, how I take a shot. And this is, some people forget to do this with digital now. But if you slow down and think about the shot, you'll make much better shots than if you just quickly take a shot. Not true with the iPhone so much, because the iPhone has a lot of automatic settings. But when it comes to a DSLR, you do want to slow down just a little bit, or do the same thing over and over again. So event photography, I'm essentially taking the same kind of shot over and over again. So I do slow down and think about the first shot, but once that shot's locked in, then I can use that type of shooting the whole way through a 2-3 hour event. But yeah, so it would happen for me in high school, just coming across Super 8 films of students from the 1970s. So yeah.
Good one. Jason?
I don't have one. I have many, but that won't make for a great soundbite. So here we go. Yeah, similarly, around high school, the moment I figured out, maybe around 15 or 16, that people's opinions of me are none of my business, and what's more, I really shouldn't care one iota about it. Basically was kind of a bizarre little turning point for me. And it occurs to me in retrospect that, like, you know, had I listened to anybody, including the people that loved me, like, you know, I probably wouldn't have finished college. I wouldn't have started my own business. You know, I wouldn't have done all the things that to this day I am most proud of. And it's not because they were trying to hold me back. It's because they, you know, they conflate realism with pragmatism, and that is that's no way to live.
Yeah. Guy?
Yeah, I can remember a moment where there was this gentleman in early 2000s. I started teaching a Final Cut 1.0 locally. There, I was doing some consulting, and this gentleman in Hollywood reached out and said, "Hey, we're doing workshops as well. You should come down and we'll chat." So went out to Hollywood and spent way too much time in the wee hours of the night and enjoying the town and partaking of the activities, being a young 20-something. And I remember distinctly coming to his house in the Hollywood Hills, and Roscoe knows who this gentleman is. His name is Josh Melliker. He owned a company called dvcreators.net. And I remember going in there with my PowerBook G3 clamshell and showing him some of the projects that I was working on. And at the time, I had transferred over some film to DV Cam for a music video project, and I was showing him how we were cutting it and just the process and everything. And he had told this story later and said that it was at that moment that he realized that he had found the next instructor for dvcreators.net. And DV Creators was one of the first companies to do Final Cut tutorials and then in-person workshops. So that moment was the moment that just like changed my career, because I wound up being an instructor for about 4 or 5 years, and then going to every major city in the entire United States, Canada, Mexico, Africa, teaching Final Cut Pro. And then that led into the store, DVE store, which I ran for 18 years, but it was a direct spin-off of DV Creator. So I could trace the whole thing to this very moment from one guy. And I'm so thankful for this guy. His name is Josh Melliker, and he's currently in LA. In fact, I just went and saw him. That's crazy to go visit my old boss. It cost me $80 in an Uber one way and $80 back to my hotel, $160 just to go shoot over to go see him at his new place. And he's doing fantastic. And it was just great to see them with open arms, you know, 25 years later. And we still hang out and enjoy each other's company. It's crazy.
Amazing. Yeah, I've got several moments as well. I'll try to dot point them. Mixing audio at church on my dad's knee as a kid, you know, as like a seven-year-old. I couldn't see over the sound desk, you know, and so it was like just learning how that worked and just being mesmerized by it, and then, you know, doing it myself. In 6th grade, I'd gravitated towards the TV with the VCR on the rolling stand, big CRT TV that would come in, and I just found it fascinating. And a teacher saw that, which is cool, and we started recording all of the assemblies that would happen every week, and then we needed to dub them off onto VHS, and that was a job for a buddy and me to do every week. So just got that idea of how the VCR worked, that sort of thing. And then it's like doing more of that church. It's lots of volunteering in that world, and volunteering at a big conference that led to meeting someone that worked in the corporate AV industry. I snapped up a job, and instantly I was up a few rungs, because of that, right? Like, because of the relationship that I had with that guy who was high up in that industry, saw me at work and said, yeah, you can come and mix this band at one of these big corporate events, and it was like, bang, I was straight into it. And then it's also just saying yes. I got asked to be a youth worker in another state, and I did it, and it was amazing. And that led to other things in social media and podcasting and live streaming, and going to live in LA and doing all that, and then coming back and continuing to do more of those sorts of following the interest and the activity. When my brother was running a little webcast company, a website company out of the States, out of Nashville, and his web developer was going away for 2 weeks, he said, do you think you could just cover this? And I knew a little bit of stuff, and this was all ASP coding, Windows coding. And the guy didn't come back, and I just kept doing it. And so then it was like, and so these sort of stories that happened along the way that met all this web development. And then, the last one that I think of is connecting with Blue, through office hours. And it was just like, yeah, I'll share this, silly little script that I've made, totally, And then it's just like, oh, what are you doing? Can I help out? I'm on the other side of the world. Can we make that sort of work? And, nearly 6 years later, we've got a company together, and still dreaming and still messing around with, scripts and bits and pieces and whatever it is. And so it's saying yes, like it's being open to those opportunities, and that's what it's been for me. So that's pretty cool. That's a good question. Nice. We're gonna let's skip and let's go to the content. Sorry, Jason, did you want to just finish that off?
Sure. I'll do the 1 minute version. There are people that you will meet in your adult life who just by leaps and bounds, you end up, just kind of working off of each other, who truly can cause these meteoric rises and incredible changes in your group trajectories. A friend of mine, Paul Aitken, who now owns and runs Drone U, we had so much fun shooting together that we did it never really even for the money, and even when there was the money, we would do it purely just as an excuse to hang out. And relationships like that, the challenge, where each challenges the other, and the sum total, the gestalt of it ends up becoming, impossibly useful for both parties. Some of the most incredible things I've ever experienced.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it does make me think about there's an event that I've been working on for 20 years. And for most of that time, it was a job that was probably about a $20,000 job, like with costs and things. But that was about the budget we're playing with. And one of the things is that we just really loved the client and would always just kind of go above and beyond. Particularly like we'd build a set, and the sets would always be, really full on, and we'd always spend, more time and effort on it. The reason I say this is that the difference is that client now is probably spending 60 grand a year with us. And the difference is that I partnered with my partner Dior in Australia, a business partner who just understands business better than me, and so was able to turn that that client into a more profitable. And the client just was like, "We want you for the next 5 years." Just recently said that we want to lock you in for the next 5 years. And so there's something about relationships as well, and finding some people that just think a little bit differently, and they have a business bent, and they, partnering has been massive for me. I partnered with Dior in 2019. I was in a heap of debt. I was not paying taxes properly. It was just bad. And all of that has turned around because Dior looks after that. And I just dream about, coding and putting bits of gear together and things like that. It's amazing to be able to do that. And so I encourage you to surround yourself with people that fill in the gaps for you as well, and potentially your weaknesses, so that you can play more to your strengths. So very good. Good discussion. That was fun. All right, content recommendations. Guy, what have you got?
Yeah, this is one that I was kicking around real recently, trying to wrap my mind around. I've been doing a couple, we call them RoboCams, PTZ operation cameras that are on some pretty big gigs, and they're being IMAG, they're being recorded, and then they're going out to a webcast. And a lot of times on site, we just have these not so great monitors because we're hauling in basically a truck full of equipment. It's a lot of gear. And I don't always get what I want, which is a nice, beautiful, we have a small HD, I think it's like a 20-inch monitor or something like that. But the content pick that I'm getting at is this Nobe Omniscope Twin Peaks tutorial. Jeff Keithley uses this, and I noticed when he was shading, his shader operator had this up, and I didn't really understand it. So I'm going to say that watching this video and then some of their other ones as well can really help you, and one, being able to get better flesh tones, not blowing out your highlights, making sure your blacks aren't crushed, because there's little tweaks that you could do in a lot of these professional cameras. You got matrices, you got pedestals, you've got things that you can tweak, but sometimes people are looking at the output on an uncalibrated monitor, and they might say something that it's too blue or something, and you're like, no, I'm looking at the scopes and I can show you right here it's not too blue. Or if you really have the tools, you can put up a chip chart ahead of time and really dial everything in, and then it's scientific. It's not no, hey, I think it looks this way, or hey, you got dark mode on, or you got night light mode on, or whatever, because there's all kinds of calibration issues that can occur somewhere in the chain. So having proper scopes and knowing how to read them is valuable. So getting Omniscope, it is kind of pricey. It's about $300. So I just renewed my license that I've had for a couple of years, but I forgot how valuable it was until I opened it up, because I've been using these other tools from Small HD on hardware, and it's just not as crisp and sharp and beautiful and elegant as Omniscope. So watch that tutorial. I'll put a link in the chat. Twin Peaks Scope, how to use video scopes demo by Nobe Omniscope.
Good one. Documentary series, Carl? What have you got?
Kind of. It's technically a YouTube channel. It's linked to a museum. So it's the Eastman Museum. So George Eastman, person who created Kodak. I'll take you to the actual website. So this is the website, but it will link you to the YouTube channel. And essentially a lot of the videos are embedded in here as well. So they do talks, they do documentary series about essentially photography, but also about George Eastman himself and the Kodak family. So Kodak, the company, was really a family for 100 years. And it was unfortunately the way that, and you actually understand how the town of Rochester became really the Kodak town. And the employee kind of benefits that you got if you were an employee of Kodak. So this is a George Eastman Museum. So as I said, there is a YouTube video related to it, and they talk about the history of photography, they talk about current photography, they bring in photographers, and they talk about a lot of things, but there's a lot of different categories of videos on their YouTube page. But it's quite a fascinating watch if you're interested in photography or filmmaking, because of course Kodak, of course, are the leaders in motion picture film as well, in the United States especially. So you get a lot of history about that as well. And you also find out some fascinating stories along the way about George Eastman himself and the late 1900s, early 20th century late 1800s, early 20th century, about when he created the company, and essentially a lot of the also the technology towards the late 90s, where Kodak had a lot of patents on digital, but they just didn't execute on the delivery to customers, unfortunately. But they held all the patents. Yeah. And the patents got bought by Google and Apple recently, so it's kind of interesting as well. But yeah, the George Eastman Museum is a pretty interesting website and YouTube channel to look at.
Nice one. Jason, you got something for us?
You bet. I'll give you something that's free. I've discovered this recently, so if you remember to use it, you'll use it a lot. OneTimeSecret.com. These guys do exactly one thing. You create, you give it a secret password, a quick notepad of something, and you can determine, where it's stored, which region, EU, Canada, let's see, New Zealand, US, and it is designed to just simply be completely ephemeral sharing. And it just, it burns after reading, and it works beautifully. And, again, people think, well, I love when people tell me about HIPAA compliance. Like, okay, so what I just described, let's see, yep, HIPAA requirements, CCPA, HIPAA, GDPR. Like, again, ephemeral is kind of the name of the game when you need to share something and you don't want to try to read it over the phone. OneTimeSecret.com. And I give you one more. I've recently been watching Wednesday again.
Hey now, you can't have two.
The Addams Family. You're gonna
there.
stop me from telling them about the Addams Family. Come on.
The Wednesdays are good.
August 3rd, the second season drops, and I've been watching the first season again, and I find myself absolutely just cracking up because just the deadpan of the Addams Family is immortally great.
I was waiting for you to pull an Alex and go for 3.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So my recommendation it comes about because of the new Superman movie, which I got to see in IMAX and in IMAX 3D, which was really good. But as a precursor to it, the night before, my 12-year-old and I watched the original Superman, the 3-hour version. And I actually really enjoyed it, surprisingly. I was kind of doing this as just I'll let my son kind of ease into, the Superman story and kind of get familiar with it. And there was aspects of it that was like, 30 minutes is, the first 30 minutes is not even, we haven't even got to Earth yet, it's like it does drag a bit. But in general, it's just great. It was great filmmaking. The storytelling, the pace of it obviously is so much slower, but I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed it couldn't have been one extreme to the other, one extreme to the other, to then go to the Superman movie in IMAX that was just like bang, 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 it's just like so much action just constantly. But my recommendation, go back and check out the 1978, I think it is. Is that right, Carl? Fact checker. 78?
Yes, 1978. The person, so an interesting thing about Superman, let's just do one last little fact, is that the stunt coordinator for Superman, was the same person who played Darth Vader.
Oh, wow. So
1977, because Superman, so Superman was interesting. So the stunt coordinator, so the interesting thing is, went on, the stunt coordinator for Darth Vader, who actually played Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back. Now, this is not David Prowse. Darth Vader played by a few people. So in Empire Strikes Back, when he's fighting Luke, that same person also taught Viggo Mortensen how to sword fight on the set of Lord of the Rings in New Zealand. So, yeah. So Star Wars, Superman, and Lord of the Rings.
That is a long career.
He was relatively old by the time he got to New Zealand, of course, but yeah.
You didn't disappoint, Carl. You brought in some random facts that connected loosely to Superman. Well done. I want to thank everyone that has come along tonight. I could see that there's probably another maybe 10 or so extra people that were looking at the background. Do you know what I just thought, guys, as well, that because they've got the multi-views and things, that when I was picking my nose before, they could still see that because they could see the multi-view.
In
so
4K. No.
Note to self. That's right. Note to self.
I hope they didn't
Always
see
can be
me
seen.
readjusting my toupee.
Exactly. So thank you. Thanks to those who were watching live and for the good questions. And sorry, we didn't get to them all. And hopefully, we answer a lot of questions on office hours. Hopefully, you appreciate the slightly different feel to this show, and please come back and ask those questions, and we'll see how it all goes again. So yeah, thanks to those that have come on live. For those people watching afterwards, it's great. We get hundreds of people that watch it afterwards, and it's awesome. So please send some questions, and hopefully you can join us live at some point. And then a special thanks to Taylor, Robert, and Peter that are making that whole vector system work, and all the systems around making looking after questions and making sure that we're all working well. It's really incredible. You talk about volunteering. We're talking about that's what we're doing, and these sorts of volunteer opportunities means that anyone that's working hard on this could totally pick up a job that's like, oh yeah, I can get a paid job running some vector stuff on the cloud or whatever it is. It's possible, right? And so that's just my last point as well, is that Taylor would love some extra help. So that's part of it. People that are watching that in the background now, contact Taylor, and you could get your hands on making this happen. So that'd be great. Get some experience with it. All right. Thanks, everyone. Join us at 7 a.m. Pacific tomorrow morning for the daily show. And see us again next week, Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.